Artist to artist, artist to artist, artist to
Hello everybody, welcome in spring in May. I hope everything is going well, your family is doing well, everyone is feeling okay. Here we're doing our interview with most interesting people around the globe. Your host xanikkka and it's Artist to Artist. We're super excited to be here with our guest. It's creative Italian lady, real artist Liaison, in a gallery in Milan, that is also a co-founder and publishing coordinator of project INFRASONICA digital platform, Eloisa Travaglini. Hello, Eloisa.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
So, how are you doing? How are you feeling today?
I'm quite excited, actually, because this is the first day of things becoming alive a little bit again. So it's a sunny spring day and there's a lot of people around. It's a little bit worrying, but also very exciting to be a bit more out of the house.
So you're now staying in Milan. This I know for sure. I don't have to ask you. We're living in the same city. But where are you coming from? Marche, right?
Indeed. Originally from Marche, in a very, very little village of 6,000 people in the middle of Marche, which is in central Italy on the east coast. Very small.
Make your city famous. Tell its name.
My village name is Monte Giorgio, like George's mountain, which is not really a mountain, it's like a tall hill, but we like to prop it up.
Yeah. You also lived in London. I saw on your LinkedIn that you worked with international galleries, not only in Milan. You did some years in London, later you came to Milan, and now you're working around the world. All these famous people, pictures that billions of people don't understand, but you can explain with full of love. So how does it come that you're coming from this small village, middle of Italy, and making all this trip until Milan and this, let me call it success?
First thing, I was thinking about it, and one thing that I have to give to people in Marche is that they turn out to be incredibly creative and also incredibly creative entrepreneurs, and this is a pattern that I love very much and that I see very much. But my very personal, let's say, history is something that you hear a lot. It's all about my mother, and my family on my mother's side was always very much being into both traveling and very much into art. So I could not steer away from it too much, I would say. And I've always been around it, around classical art and modern art since I was very little. Every vacation, every holiday, every trip. And they know about art much more than I could ever know about. But they never were into contemporary art, which is what I do. It was a bit of a natural evolution, and when I found out that this could be an actual job, well, I had no choice really. And I found out a little late too. It was like high school, and I understood that I was in a show, and I was in Chicago at the Art Institute, and I read this word curator, and I thought, damn it, this can be a job. And so that's always been the case, not that I wanted to be a curator, but working with artists could be a really, really interesting and nurturing job. And then traveling comes a little bit as a necessity. So if my little jobs that I had here and there, from like Brussels to London, a little bit in New York, and now in Milan, were a bit of a necessity in discovering this job and how you do it. And it's been a very, very organic sort of path, but was very much planned and very much intended since I was like 16 or so.
16?
Yes. And it was and everything that I planned for, it was sort of in this direction, and it's never changed as a kind of an aim. It has changed according to plans and opportunities that you find on your path, but definitely something that you have to like look ahead for, or I did at least. but I'm like that pretty much.
How many years it took to you to arrive where you're now?
I would say that I catch up on this path that it was sort of clear to me. So I would say 10 years from when I decided what university, what BA to go for. In Milan, actually. This is the first university that I attended was in Milan. So I would say tomorrow is exactly 10, it's like 10 years exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, even though it sounds a little funny because I am, like 29, but it definitely with a sort of an objective, and the trajectory has always been this. So yeah.
Was it hard?
I didn't find particularly hard to work in this field, for example, even though it is a bit of a competitive, field in the sense there are not so many people that are lucky enough to work in the galleries that really wanted to work for and with. Just a little bits of it were hard, but as they are hard for. But I find incredibly fortunate and incredibly pleasant to work in this field. Yeah.
Don't you think it's like kind of connected? When you love what you do, it's actually easier to do it, much easier, because it inspires you, it motivates you, and you don't see anything hard there.
And you don't think you could do anything else that could make you happier. You think about it, of course, everybody thinks about, oh, maybe I should have done this, I should have been an architect, I should have gone to work for the UN, I should have gone to work, my original plan when I was a teenager was like international relations, so maybe sometimes I think maybe I should have done that, but never really. I cannot think of anything else that I would love doing more. So it makes it easier, definitely.
You were lucky with having parents that also gave you the direction of this thinking that you actually can work and make money with art. Not everyone has it, You could be son of some plumber, and later, how do you start to go into creative field?
But I do want to tell you that, for example, my parents are tailors, and my whole, let's say, family of my dad's side are tailors, and it's I've been very lucky that they've understood and supported every single choice that I made. But for example, they don't come from like a super established or like a higher ground sort of background. So this is important for me, and they've given me everything that I could ever wish for. This is clear, but this is not something that is an elitist thing to do. Even though sometimes it seems like, again, I'm very lucky, but it's like you can do it in many different ways.
Tell me, Eloisa, how is going quarantine for you? What is your day schedule?
Mm-hmm. You know that answer, in the sense that, again, I have to bring this up again. I know that I've lived this sort of month and a half, almost two, in a very, very fortunate environment. In conditions, I live in a house that is with friends and that I love spending time with, and in which I can also take my sort of private time in. I continue to work. We worked a lot, and it's always a really creative sort of a job that you also have to reinvent together with your teammates. And at the same time, you have the time that you never have. Like, everything slows down a little bit. So you read and you watch the movies that you never see, and you take some time for yourself that I hardly have the way to. So it's been relaxing. It's been very introspective in a way, because after the first few weeks that you sort of don't realize exactly what this time is doing to you, you enjoy the reading and the films, and you enjoy very physical things or practical things. But at some point, I understood that it sort of does something to your mind, which is very, really positive. It's a kind of relaxation, it's a kind of openness that is different. So you start listening to another type of music, you watch movies that you've never ever wanted to watch. So it's been very, very expanding, if I can say, even though we've worked a lot, because this is also a time where you have to reinvent your job if you're lucky enough to have it. And I have been very I work with very interesting content as well, so that sort of access those sort of, I have to read books for work and I have to read and write texts for work, so that maybe counts a little bit too.
You would say that you work for money or for pleasure?
Let's say if I worked for money, I would have done a very different job, but at the same time, my role within the contemporary art world is one of those that is usually quite stable, and therefore I think very much about the autonomy that I can have, the independence that I can have from my family, from anybody else, which relies, of course, on the money that I make. So I'm not a total like I do this because I love it, only because I love it, but it's a kind of a life that you're allowed that I enjoy very much. In that regards, like the traveling and it makes sense if you live, you know, in the cities that I live in, like Milan or the others. So it's a little bit of a really a combination of the two for sure. But if I wanted to make money, this is not the job that I would be doing.
And which job would you do if it would be for money?
I can't detach from I went to a business school during my BA to Bocconi. So I have a range of like financial occupations or things like this that could be, they can make it, that I would never be able to do, but something that I would say more tending to, if I ever had the ability to, which I do not. But I haven't been surrounded by those kind of intentions that it was. You think about it a couple of times, like maybe I should have, and then no, not really, because I would go crazy. Just twice. I did my BA in Milan in business school. It was Bocconi is a business school, but a little more. It was a BA directed towards contemporary art as well and management of creative industries. And this is exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to have a little more of a solid organizational and management approach. And then my plan, and so I did to go to an MA that was one in London, and that was in contemporary art theory. So having the structures in a way and the access a little bit more, and then really even more solid contents, which is a little more than what you can, no, a little, like definitely more than whatever you can do by yourself. Yeah. And also this is tied to a little bit of a job stability, because I know very well, especially in Italy, how these jobs can be hard to find, hard to maintain, hard to be sustainable.
It's
so that
competitive, as I know.
Very, especially in Italy. But through the university of my MBA, I had access to really interesting internships, and that's exactly what I built on. Again, this is again another very lucky thing that I was able to do, that I don't take for granted. But the best plan that I had in mind, I could put in place.
And tell me about this internship, what it gave you, why?
The very first internship I did was at the beginning, first semester of my second year, and I went to Brussels in this very little gallery founded by an Italian, Francesco Rossi, who then went, there was an assistant for a long time, and then he founded his own gallery, who worked with established and let's say mid-career and young Dutch artists, or artists from Belgium especially. And he had such a growth of the gallery, but where still things were very much small enough for me to observe. It was very interesting to approach the job in a sort of down-to-earth way. I could observe everything, we could do everything, and it was the two of us. And we would work among his studio and the gallery, and it was an incredible He had an attention to detail that I really hardly ever seen. And that was the first, the very first, and it was through the university. And that was the very first approach. And I was very mesmerized by things. And we keep in touch still, and I went back to work for him over time for fairs in the past. And then, we still keep in touch. And his gallery has expanded incredibly. He has another couple of spaces. The program is wonderful. Some of his artists that he used to work with when I was there, he still works with, and have done incredible things. He had a really good vision of things.
Wow. What's his name? Francesco?
Rossi. And his gallery is called Rossi Contemporary.
Yeah, let's definitely add the image so we can also share.
Yeah, you would love to.
Wow, and after that it was
Milan again, and I worked a little bit in Milan for a non-profit, like as an assistant project manager for an exhibition. And then I did another internship in New York for like 4 months.
Oh,
a little bit. And then after that, it was back to Milan. I have to say, I was dragging my VA a little long because it was really hard for me to be in that environment. But it's like I kept working, so I could change places and I could study along as I was working, and went back to the exams. And after that, so before London, it was my first really serious job. That was in Berlin for 2 years.
2 years.
And that was 2 years, and that was wonderful. Again, it was one of the galleries that I really, with the artists that I love the most, and they work incredibly well. And then at some point, I had finally graduated my BA, which I dragged along for quite a bit too long, but it was necessary for me to make sense of it. Why should I finish it? Why should I finish these exams? It was because I wanted to work and do my MA afterwards. And I did a little bit by traveling. So after Berlin, it was London. Finally. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. So, what is your engine? What is actually motivating you to do all of this? To travel, to try, to experiment, to work and study in the same time? I mean, we will arrive to the topic of private life, but let's first understand what gives you all this energy to go on in this field. What is
this is something that is like, it's not the first time that I ask myself, or people have asked me, indeed, but in the sense that why it is a little bit of intrinsic ambition, a little bit in the sense that the work is such a large part of my life, and what I wake up in the morning for, let's say, that is a little bit, and I think this would have happened with any job that I ever would do. It's a sense of responsibility for the people that you work with, and for the artists that you work with, for the galleries that you work with. So that is a little bit part of me already. Continuing of being around people that are so creative, are able to see things so differently, that you this sort of need to continue to work for them, or to continue to work with them. It's something that is like something that is very strong, maybe a little stronger than what I imagined. And then you build and you create working for a gallery as opposed to a museum or a Kunsthalle or other types of organizations or companies, allow you to work really closely and continuously with an artist. So you have to do something with their inventory. So you're super detailed about the dimension of a work, and you have to set them up, and then having like super practical, technical details about production, until writing texts and dealing with museums for their exhibitions. So it's a sort of an overall relationship which becomes very personal as well, and that you, together with your galleries that I work with, you engage in, and it's a continuous sort of a growth, a continuous sort of relationship that you want to invest. You feel like invested in it. It becomes very personal. as well. And
Yeah. So many people with so many stories. You're working all on the same idea and sharing ideas. It's a lot. It's making closer you and to people working for art. That's
true. It is intense, and sort of the amount of ideas and languages and images that you have, and sounds and videos, everything that you have around you is a lot. And it's a continuous resource that you cannot sort of get rid of, though. This is the thing of I would not be able to have a job whose content I'm not interested in. Even creative jobs, but they have that are a little more I don't know, related to product or related to really commercial side of things, even though a gallery is, let's not forget, a commercial endeavor, a commercial company. But I don't think I would be able to give my best to something or to a project whose content is not really interesting for me. This doesn't mean that I love every single artwork of the artists that I work with or I have worked with. Definitely, this would be crazy, but you learn to understand it and appreciate it and communicate it and do the best that you can to have them communicate it best. And again, I've working with the gallery that you're in, you follow certain focuses. Every gallery has a really like a pool of artists that make their own sense. And again, they're really, really tightly intertwined with the gallery's sort of like a figure, I would say. It's an interlacing of relationships that become really personal and that are really, really interesting and challenging.
I will cut this part.
Like there's some people doing crazy things.
Yeah, I hope it's not.
Oh, but continue. Yeah.
Okay. Eloisa, can you please tell me about the most interesting project that you did in the last period? Because I believe working with an artist, you also have giving energy to the artist. You would like him to give you the same energy back. It also depends on the character of the person, on the art he's creating, on the direction he's going. So someone with whom you synchronize so well that it again underlines your love to what you're doing. Tell me if I'm clear.
You are. And I think I feel that in my position, I have two things come to mind, two projects that we've worked on lately come to mind. The first one is an exhibition, a solo exhibition at the Gallery by Martha Rosler, who's one of the most acclaimed like American artists from the 70s until today. And she had always been a sort of a love, and this is the thing, you don't love Martha Rosler, you appreciate it and you recognize it as one of the biggest sort of voices and interesting looks, like sides on contemporary society and history. And I've always been very crazy about her, and I could never think, and I was very excited about talking to her for the first time, very nervous to write for her for the first time. And again, so this is an exchange that was very uneven a little bit. She's working with the gallery, she's been working with the gallery for a long time, but when you become the one sort of talking to the artist, it becomes also very personal. There was an incredible project with some more contemporary pieces and a little more like a video from 73 and other works from the recent decade, and talking to her and working with her conceptually and together with Raffaella, was the gallerist. It was incredibly fascinating, and I never thought I could get to this point. I never thought I would have the chance. And then another very interesting project is the latest that we've worked on. During this couple of months, of course, like exhibitions that we would have opened could not open, and fairs that we would have gone to could not happen. And so you have to really understand how to think of how you should revolutionize your way of working, and how you can transmit and talk about the art digitally more than you could ever do in a space, because this is now necessary. And so we curated a booth for Frieze New York, which is one of the really important fairs worldwide, and which is going to open this week. And it was like a conversation between two artists, a photographer and a painter, an Italian photographer and a Swiss painter. We were working on it for so long. We were working on it since like November, and we had took trips, and they chose that they had a dialogue about beautiful things, and then we could not really do it. So we translated it into a digital project. Which of course I could never say it's the same
because of the quarantine.
Yes, because the fair is not happening. So they did this online, they call it a viewing room, which is an online exhibition. And so this has been really interesting, because you have conversations that you've never had before, and you have to rethink your whole, both business-wise and both conceptually-wise, and both. It's been a really interesting. It looks very good, but it's been really interesting.
Personal project, as I understand, you're co-founder.
Yes, this was walking around London. Pablo Jose Ramirez was a curator at Tate, and we were studying together. In London. Came to me with this idea, and me, him, and Sam, who was again another one of our friend at the university, thought about this and have worked on it for the last. It's been 2 years almost. And after London, Pablo went back to Guatemala, Sam went back to California, I came back here, and so it was really a long process. But what Pablo really wanted to do was to create a sort of a journal type of thing, or it's not a magazine, it's more of a journal type of platform, digital platform, that would totally dedicate itself to sound. We would call it sound art, but sound experimentations and sound practices by artists or art practitioners, as we say, from areas of the world that are not almost at all represented. So we call it non-Western type of areas or regions in the world, and this becomes a much more complicated sort of question, like academic question that I'm not going into. But this is again a platform which has 3 issues a year. There's a yearly theme which is explored through these 3 waves, as we call it, and we invite collaborators, which are artists, academics, writers, musicians, to create new content with us, or to engage in content that already exists and which will be translated in another language, or which will have a different kind of twist. And the first wave just opened just now in April. And there's names, just to tell, like Nicola Cruz was a musician, Erika Puja was an academic, to Patricia Dominguez was an artist. And so, yeah, and things are good. I mean, feedbacks have been really nice from very different type of areas that we were interested in, and people that we really care about. And we hope that this is something that did not exist and that does not exist yet. And we hope to have it grow quickly. The next wave is going to be in July, and we hope, again, everything is already planned out, so I hope things will go interestingly. But this is I'm very excited about, very, very, very excited about.
So this project is taking place only on digital platforms for now?
It is. The next step that we would like to take is about more physical encounters. But we'll see when this is going to be happening, as taking the shape of seminars or exhibitions or talks. And then other few things that I will not reveal, but definitely this is going to be digital, which supports also the focus on the sound, which is absolutely important to us.
Wow. So which artists mainly you were reaching for?
Oh, this is the you caught a good point, because there is no, we avoid the type of definition. First of all, because we understand, and we start from the assumption that also the definition of artist is sometimes misunderstood, and people or collaborators that work with us or that we focus on are not necessarily recognized as either visual artists or sound artists or musicians, but they can be cultural figures, or they can be, again, writers, sort of, I can't find the word, like they can be really, really culturally important or relevant figures as well, but not necessarily artists as we would mainly understand it. And this was important to us.
Mainly, sorry?
No.
I believe that everyone is artist. Is it a teacher, even a student can be artistic if he's thinking creatively, artistically. I believe artists, based also on the practice you're doing.
Definitely.
How much you're involved. So what is art for you? Now your turn.
But I play alongside you in the sense that potentially, this sounds very big. I mean, this is my big, like a big statement, but I don't want it to be. But potentially, I agree with you in the sense that what makes you or what makes somebody an artist is the practice and the sort of commitment and the development of a language that is your own and that develops over time. So this is what I think, and this can, this, you see, can involve so many different types of practices.
I'm writing down.
I'm really afraid to make sort of statements, but it is very important to leave it as open as possible, and to concentrate on the sort of, not even methodologies, but exactly the word you say, like a practice. You turn it into a practice that over time, that develops over time, that you develop over time, which becomes a language. And this sort of path and this sort of trajectory over time can be very, very different. There have been, some of the most famous artists who are still very famous, who have kept their practice a little bit more enclosed within certain years, and that have kept being famous for the same things, or artists that are completely revolutionary, like revolutionizing their aesthetic, if I can use, or the practice in very different ways over time. So this is why it's important to leave it open, and the cultural, this is why this MA in London was called visual cultures. It's not even visual arts. It's exactly because of a type of definition that you need to be very careful about. And I thought this is precious, and this is a sort of and I entered that MA with a sort of a mindset which got swept away within not even a year, and this was a fundamental thing.
Everything is mutating. We cannot be ready for like kind of something new coming out tomorrow. You just have to decide to adapt to it or not, to read this language, to learn it or not, isn't it?
It's true, and
about it.
Artists somehow they in very different ways, I feel that they always do. Maybe not right in the moment, but over time, in some perceptible or imperceptible way, they register everything that happens over time. Even the ones that isolate themselves completely, for example. But you always read it's a reading of the present that is of the contemporary moment, which is unavoidable, I find. And this is what is also this is why I'm really interested in contemporary art, but I decided wanted to work in contemporary art and not in a modern art gallery or not in an auction house. You never know. We never know, but I don't plan on it.
Eloisa, what would you suggest to young artists just starting their way? How to expose themselves to the world right now, especially like in art field? Not like selling themselves on Instagram or advertisement or something that we see every day. How to enter?
This is a really hard question, no? This is a really hard question in the sense that maybe the one that I feel the most frustrated about, in the sense that I would want to have a more helpful answer, and it never sort of is, because there is no recipe. But some things that have happened in the past, is some things that I know that are valid in this circuit, are being in touch a lot with your colleagues, like with your fellow artists, so to say, and organize exhibitions and occasions of visibility, communicate, like curate them well and communicate them well. Also be in touch with people that do, even if they're very young, but you can find really, really interesting people, even much younger than me, that do my type of work, in the sense that write about art and curate art, and which is not exactly what I do. I work for a gallery, but it's like really young curators or people that aspire to be curators, that can be a really, really interesting way of constructing language about your work and finding occasions of visibility. And then try to go for residencies, try to go for prizes, try to go for any occasion of intersecting with people from this field, because this is how it happens. And then once you start doing it, it sort of gives you access to another different level of things. And then you're gonna be if you ever attended an academia, your professors and your teachers are possibly writers or people that are very much involved with a little bit of a like more established environment of art. And this is what I think is always positive to do. And also, I would, on the contrary, to balance it out, do not overshow, in the sense that, or maybe do not show too early. I remember there was a friend of mine who was attending an academy in Germany, and she was very weary of showing her like mock-ups or showing her like sculptures, or looking desperately for a gallery to show in, or looking desperately for group shows. But she went for very, very selected occasions, and at the same time she was very active in creating the occasions that she wanted to be inserted in. And I think this is also a very precious eye on things. It is very scary to be an artist, especially a young artist, very scary. So this is why I feel a little uncomfortable, because I would like to be more helpful, but these are things that I think are very, very valuable always.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that you didn't push on any social pages and stuff. You've been speaking more like a traditional way of doing things, that still are, it's separated from.
This is what
Instagram.
Yeah. I didn't mention it because it's this is a thing. It depends on, that is an hyper valid tool if used well, in the sense that very often it can act as a tool for overexposure, which might not be so helpful. Definitely, if you sort of build a really interesting and wise strategy, that is definitely like a way to go. It is true that is not the first thing that I think of, but because maybe this is my sort of a mindset, but this is definitely, especially for a younger generation, definitely an access. But it is very important not to do it wisely and sort of curate it. I don't like the word in this sense, but to use it wisely. And not to overproduce images, unless you do it incredibly intentionally, and then you make that your practice. Some artists do and exploit the digital world and reflect on the digital world in this sense really brilliantly, and they create these sort of glitches on the systems itself, on the platform itself. But again, it's very much intentional. So yeah,
it is intentional. Eloisa,
I like the word intentional very much in general.
I believe today you said it just like 5 times.
Yeah, I'm a very intentional. I'm not intentional, but you can't say that, but I do things with intention.
14 hours a day to work, this can't be without intention.
It's not always. I don't want to pass up like it's happened. This week it's happened. It's not always.
Yeah, like I'm not your neighbor. No. Okay, I would like to do this last question.
Right.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
This is like a I like it. This is a halfway psychiatric question and halfway like a job interview question.
Right. This is
yeah, and I like it. I like it. And this is what you must know, that this is something that I continuously ask myself, in the sense that I live very much on realistic perspective or realistic, I'm not very good at possibly living in the present, but I always live in the function of something that I want to be doing, not theoretically, but that I want to build on. So I take this question very differently, and I think this is really useful. I see myself doing the same job of relations and working with artists. What I would like to develop the most is a little more of institutional relations, which we already do. Like I already help do in the gallery, in the sense of taking care of all the institutional relationships that the artist through the gallery has, and creating more opportunities for shows and exhibitions and acquisitions in that sense. I wonder if this is a sort of the place that I want to do it in, because I know that I will soon feel the need to maybe go somewhere else. But I knew this is happening, and I know this happens all the time, and this is a fuel. You remember the fuel that you were talking about before? This is also very much it. Like it gets to a point where I want to embrace a very different, but a different environment, life, home. It's like I need a little change. So I don't know if I will be still here doing it, but definitely I would think very same job.
Yeah, I believe you also will go on doing what you love. Just as soon as you're growing, you want to be the same. So we all will be different in 5 years.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure. Who knows? Maybe I would have left everything and we'll go.
Come on, INFRASONICA.
Somewhere. Definitely INFRASONICA is something that is like. But this is, one of the many life-saving things that I imagine. I would love for INFRASONICA to grow and to become the sort of a main job that I will have, and that we will sort of live for and live with. Definitely would love that. But this is not a very. It is a declination of it, but it's very much the same. It's included in the kind of the same job that I want to be doing. It's very much the same
big plan that you created.
It's elastic, as all of my plans, in the sense that I know the direction that I sort of want to go through, but maybe, I don't know, in 6 months, something will be crazy, will present it to me, like go to work for the gallery in Cuba, and I will definitely take it. I don't know. But if there's occasions that present themselves, it's always been important to catch them. But the direction is always, but I also sort of refuse those weird off opportunities that presented themselves, but that were not on my direction or my trajectory.
So you have to say no.
Yes. Sometimes I'm not very good at it, but I've learned to. I've learned to.
Nice. Thank you for saying yes to have an interview with me.
Of course, I could never say no to you.
Oh, Elise, it was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really think we took a lot out from it. If there will be additional questions, I will call you for the next one. Just I will book you 1 month before. This time, okay?
Mondays.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. These are occasions that you review yourself and you sort of rethink about yourself, because you don't ever articulate these things unless it's strange. So thank you.
Welcome. I enjoy it actually very much. I mean, it's nice to put yourself in an hour to speak about something a little bit deeper than just lunch of 10 minutes.
It's true.
Not like a lot of people on the street, a lot. Here we can expand it, fully listen. I like it.
And this is the thing of having that the time is actually the expended time that you have. And
people they don't want to listen, they just can skip. There is like no pencil.
It is very strange to be the sort of not to ask you questions back. It is very strange, but but I thank you for this opportunity.
I can believe that also with my way of speaking, how I'm speaking. I'm putting my opinion even without being questioned. This is not this part of me, but I mean, this part all will be cut already. That's why I'm behaving so much. Okay, I'm very excited. Super nice.
Thank you, baby.
Yeah. Let's see how it all works out. I will start to edit today. And the interview, I think, in a week or a couple of weeks.
Sure.
Because I told you, that Mateusz told me a little bit to chill out, not to rush to post every interview I just did, but like to work on them. So I'm playing like I'm recording TV series, first 5 episodes, and while publishing those 5 episodes, I record next one and see the feedback.
I think that is a very good plan because I think you understand so much in the first ones, and also you need some content like over time. So,
every time conversation actually follows. I don't use all the questions. Some new questions come out. It all comes very much to the soul. Every person I'm speaking with is actually very much caring about what they do. This is beautiful. This is what is having value, a lot. Because other people are even not able to find what they want to do. Like you remember me. It's hard. Okay, I let you go free. It's 5:30.
Yeah, but what is really, really super cool that from that night at the table where you sort of, it was definitely not that you had no idea, because you always have the idea of like the day after you turn it into an idea and you acted on it. And this is incredible. I was telling Sabina the other day, like acting on just brainstorming and ideas on the very next day is like what makes the difference. So congratulations.
Well, if to accept the fact that 3 weeks before, for 3 weeks before, I was laying and actually procrastinating and eating my brain with a spoon.
But you have to get to the point where you...
Or to do or not to do.
But let's be careful because we shouldn't be in large groups tomorrow already.
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, I can cancel later people in Photoshop for publishing.
Right.
After we send the real photos and then we will publish just where is you and log you on the other side of the room.
Okay. Bye, baby.
Ciao, Eloisa.
Thank you. Later. Thank you, baby.